The stranger hidden beneath the snow. The wind tore across the Wyoming high country with enough force to shake pine trees to their roots. Thick snow swallowed the narrow mountain trail, erasing every sign of the world beyond a few yards. Then came a cry. Not loud. Not desperate. Just enough for a lonely rancher to stop his horse. Before we begin, tell me this, if you found a stranger buried beneath a blizzard with no idea who was hunting them, would you risk your own life to save them? Nathan Cole pulled his wool scarf over his face and guided his old chestnut horse toward the sound. At 45, Nathan had survived more winters than he cared to count. Since losing his wife nearly a decade earlier, the mountains had become his closest companions. The horse suddenly refused another step. Nathan frowned. "What's wrong, Scout?" The animal stared toward a drift piled beside a broken pine tree. Nathan climbed down, his boots sinking deep into fresh snow. At first, he saw nothing but white. Then a faded blue shawl peeked through the ice. His heartbeat quickened. He dug frantically until he uncovered the unconscious body of a young woman wrapped in expensive traveling clothes, her face pale as winter itself. He pressed 2 fingers against her neck. A weak pulse. "You're still fighting," he whispered. Without hesitation, Nathan wrapped her in his heavy buffalo coat and lifted her onto Scout. The ride back to his cabin became a battle against freezing wind and fading daylight. Hours later, firelight flickered across rough log walls as the woman finally opened her eyes. She looked around cautiously. "Where am I?" "My ranch," Nathan answered. "You're safe here." She studied him for several silent moments. "My name is Evelyn." Nothing more. Nathan sensed the rest of her story remained locked away behind frightened eyes. For 3 days, another storm trapped them inside the cabin. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Victor Ashcroft. She explained how forged documents had nearly transferred ownership before her father secretly changed his will. Ashcroft discovered the truth too late. So he arranged an accident. The stagecoach crashed. Everyone believed Evelyn had died. She escaped into the wilderness before anyone realized she had survived. Since then, she'd spent months hiding from hired riders determined to finish the job. Nathan stared into the fire. "You've been running ever since?" "Yes." The following evening, hoofbeats echoed outside. 3 riders appeared beyond the front gate. Their leader wore a long black coat dusted with snow. He smiled without warmth. "Good afternoon." Nathan stepped onto the porch. "What do you want?" "I'm searching for someone." His gaze drifted toward the cabin window. A young woman traveling alone. Nathan folded his arms. "Don't know anyone like that." The stranger chuckled. "My name is Victor Ashcroft." Nathan recognized cold confidence when he heard it. Victor removed a folded document from his saddlebag. "Hart Ridge Ranch now belongs to my company." Nathan glanced at the official-looking papers. "If Miss Hart appears, tell her she has 5 days to surrender her claim." "And if she doesn't?" Victor smiled. "The families living on that ranch will lose everything." The riders turned and disappeared into the snowy valley. That night, Evelyn stood beside the corral fence watching the stars. "I have to go back." Nathan joined her quietly. "You don't owe me anything." He looked across the moonlit fields. "Maybe." She turned toward him. "You barely know me." Nathan smiled faintly. "I know enough." For years he'd convinced himself that grief had left nothing worth fighting for. Now he realized he was wrong. At sunrise they saddled their horses. Together they rode south across frozen rivers, towering forests, and endless prairie. Each passing mile strengthened the trust growing between them. Neither spoke much. They didn't need to. After 8 days, they reached a rocky overlook. Below stretched Hart Ridge Ranch. Hundreds of cattle grazed across rolling hills. Smoke curled from ranch houses. Children played beside red barns. Families who had no idea how close they were to losing everything. Evelyn drew a slow breath. This is home. Nathan rested a hand on the saddle horn. Then let's make sure it stays that way. Far below, riders were already gathering near the main house. The battle for Hart Ridge had begun. But this time, Evelyn Hart wasn't running. She had returned to fight for the people who had always been her family. And beside her stood one cowboy who had discovered that sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't surviving the storm. It's choosing to stand beside someone long after the snow has melted. If you enjoyed this original Western adventure and want to see what happens next, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more cinematic frontier stories to life. Until next time, keep your boots steady, your heart brave, and thanks for watching.